we really believe, and I myself as well, did the ability to use technology, as you know very well, to make our lives better, to make our lives easier, to make certain processes that we didn't think about exist.
Levanon Chazan, I'm so happy we're finally doing this. Thank you for the time.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
This is going to be so much fun. And, there's so much that I want to talk about. But first, I want to start with your journey because, just going over your background, I got overwhelmed by seeing the number of different places that you've gone through, the venture capital firms to product companies and then back to venture capital firms across continents. So, Adi, dumb it down for me. How do you get to where you are now at Flint Capital and helping invest, in Israel, but also previously in New York? Talk to me about your journey.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm American originally. I'm actually from your neck of the woods right now. So I grew up in Palo Alto. Parents are Israeli. Moved to Israel when I was 12 with the family. And basically everything I've done after the army was either in startups or in venture capital in some shape or form. I'm a lawyer, but I don't practice. So I guess some call it a recovering lawyer. And yeah, I mean, I think I've been in different places because I've just been fortunate, basically, every time to get more exposure, more responsibility. I started off, like I said, as a lawyer at one of Israel's first billion-dollar internet companies called Conduit. I started off there as legal counsel, and then I moved on to manage the compliance team.
When you go to study, law, and you go to law school, do you go there, with the perception that you want to be, a lawyer later on at a tech company, or do you just say, okay, I want to be a lawyer because I'm interested in law?
No, it's a really good question. So I can give you my perspective, right? Because it's only from my point of view. But I think for me, the way I got to where I am now is based, I always think a few steps ahead. So I kind of knew in my mind that even though I liked law and enjoyed it, the things I liked most were contract law and business law. So I knew that even if I would join as legal counsel, I always had the desire to go to the business side at some point, which I think is why I became legal counsel as my first job as a lawyer. And I basically went down that road, right? So from legal counsel at the company, then I managed a compliance team, which in many ways was a combination of, it was kind of between law, but also a lot of business and also very technical. I managed a team of developers and analysts, and we worked with all the R&D teams. Yeah. And then that time we had two main clients were Google and Microsoft Bing. So I kind of had to be the bottleneck with regards to any kind of new product or any kind of major partnership that we had. Yeah. So it was pretty cool in that sense.
So what it sounds to me is that you're taking this, you're starting out as a lawyer, you're joining a billion-dollar company, Conduit, in Israel, and then you go and you work with, huge clients, and that put you in a position where you're in the intersection between the tech and the compliance, and you're getting the exposure both of the R&D, but also from your background, and slowly you're moving yourself to the business. And then how do you go to product and venture capital from there?
So first there was, venture capital. So I moved on to Rhodium from there, which also Oded Filmoni, he was part of the team, and Daniel Kilkanati, obviously, and Yaron Piaget. So I moved on to there. I actually got my first leg into VC as a student at IDC, at the IDC Herzeliya, actually working for what was then Carmel Ventures, as now Viola. So I worked there actually as a student. At some point, I did like almost 75% of a position while I was doing 2 degrees. So that's kind of my first picture in the world of VC. And then when I heard from a friend actually for a portfolio company of Rhodium, they were looking for somebody to join the team, the investment team. I was like, okay, this is where I want to go. I kind of had that just hunger to enter that space. I thought it was so interesting. I heard about it kind of from my parents because they were always in tech, and I was like, I need to go down that route. And I was really fortunate. I think that a lot of what I went through in compliance, managing teams, like you said, and working with R&D teams really helped me then when I met with founders at Rhodium.
So Adi, I want you to take me back a little bit and give me the pivotal moments in your upbringing where, because right now you're one of the most, popular investors in Israel. And no, I've been recommended to talk to you on this show from so many people that I can't even count anymore. But so I'm curious, one of the things I'm curious about is what helps a person get to where they are today? Is it, just their passion? Is it, opportunities that they were seizing? Is it motivation? So what were some of the pivotal moments that you really became passionate and you knew I want to devote myself to the work that I'm doing?
I think it's a really good question. I mean, it's a lot of the things you said, right? So first, people who know me know I'm a very passionate person. I get very, very excited about things that I believe in, sometimes too much, but I'm very, very excited about things I'm passionate about. And I think that passion is something that is contagious. I think that helps when you meet people, they see that you want something and you're interested. I think that's helped. But in many ways, to get to where you want to go, I mean, I say this a lot. I think you really need to be open to meeting people, be open to hearing other people's stories, and learn from their stories what works for you and what doesn't. Like, I've always done my homework before every step I took, whether it was, I mean, I moved to New York, I had nothing, right? Like I had nothing, I had family and everything, but in New York I didn't come with a partner. I had maybe knew 3 people. I didn't have an apartment. I didn't have a job, but I came very structured. And I think everything I've done was always very structured. Like I said, I always thought a few steps ahead. So like, where do I want to go and how do I get there? And I think having a structure and passion and talking to people and not being, having that great, like not being shy. I was almost saying ashamed, but it's not about being ashamed. It's not being shy. To reach out to people. I've reached out to partners, really large VC funds in New York before I moved and said, I'm moving. This is my background. I'd love to have coffee. And in many cases it worked. And I really believe that, it worked for me then. And I really believe that also today. So I hope that answers your question.
It definitely does. And my, follow-up question is, why venture capital? It sounds like, with your passion and consistency, you could choose any job you want in the world, yet you choose to focus on venture capital. Why do that instead of continuing to another company or creating your own company?
It's a good question. I love venture. I love this job. I love the ability I'm a very curious person. So I love the fact that I get to meet so many different people and so many different ideas and learn from them. Like, my curiosity is constantly fed on a daily basis, which really intrigues me. And I really love being able to be helpful and be impactful. And I think that that's a lot of what we do. I mean, not every fund does that, not every investor does that, but people that know me, I think founders that know me, like, I try hard to work for them. And I think that, at least I see it that way. Hopefully that they will agree, but that's how I kind of view it. So trying to be, to be helpful. And I think that in the end of the day, the combination of a financial, a financial business, in the end of the day, we are an asset class like any other in many ways, but being able to bring something that's beneficial and brings money, but also impacts the world, hopefully in a positive way, makes me feel really good. And it gets me up in the morning. And of course, I think that working for a startup is fantastic, and who knows what will happen in the future. But in general, like, I love this job. I think for me also, I love the fact that I see different things. I've had opportunities in the past to join, even when I was in New York, like to join portfolio companies as a COO and things like that. And I just thought, I'll come in and I'll do this and it'll be great. But after 6 months, I think I'll be like, okay, what's next? Not because it's not interesting, but I do like touching different things at once. That's just me personally.
That's so cool. Okay, so now, talking about journeys, and I'd love to talk about one of the things that you're really passionate about, diversity in tech. And I think it's, on one hand, it's a subject that is being spoken about more and more in our domain. On the other hand, it's definitely not spoken about enough, and not enough has been done to bring that to level the playing field. And, as a mother and, as an ambitious career woman, I'd love to hear your take on, where are we at today, and what do you think needs to happen in order to level the playing field much more than what is being done today?
So, fantastic question. So I think there is a shift, but it's a little bit, it's slow, right? My point of view has been for a while is that if we don't, there's some people that focus on, right, the top-down approach, okay, which is we need to start from schools, we need to start educating, we need to start even in the form of, removing biases. There's this known kind of, I forgot what type of bias it's called. I think it's the acceptance bias, if I'm not mistaken, I don't remember, but, you're not going to think about a doctor versus being a female unless you see many female doctors, right? There's something about having that vision in front of you that helps children at the end of the day think that they can be the next founder, the next CEO, the next astronaut, et cetera, et cetera. So some people focus on that, and I think that's really, really important. I really believe that in our world, it needs to come top down. I know I'm not the only one that thinks this, but I've wrote a few posts about it, and I think that the problem is that we don't have enough people at the top that trickle down and say, okay, either I'm a CEO of a Fortune 500, or I'm a wealthy individual, or whatever it may be. I have the opportunity to be impactful and be helpful, but do I actually do anything to bring more women to sit next to me? And that it's not enough. And I think it's shifting, But for my mind, it's like just as an example, I started, it's not even like a very, very organized process. But I started something within, there's some female investors in Israel, a few funds. They started this VC group of women in VC. And they were like, there are 40 something of us. And I said, there's so many pitch events all the time. Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And I think there are more than 40 now. I think there's near 50, which is fantastic.
Wow.
So that in and of itself shows that there is a shift.
Right.
But hold on, that I think is great. And because I noticed that we have such amazing power in this platform, let's go and just do pitch events or office hours, some places call it, for female founders. And we've been doing it for a few months now, and it's been fantastic. But the reason why I'm so excited about it is a few things. I think that it's really important that more female VCs make decisions. Because if we're not making the decisions and we're not part of the investment committee and we're not part of the actual decisions and check writing, we're not going to get to that place of being a partner and then maybe later in the day becoming an LP ourselves or angel investor, etc. So that's on one hand from the VC side, and then obviously helping the founders, female founders who statistically we know they have a harder time raising money, have a better opportunity from women that they usually don't meet at the table. So both sides of that I think is really crucial, but it really needs to come from the top. We need more LPs that are women. We need more COs to be women. We just need more people that have capital and access and the ability to make decisions to start making it for women. And not just women, by the way, more any diversity, whether it's in Israel, 100%. I would say Arabs and Ethiopians and whatever it may be, people with disabilities, it doesn't matter. Just have
100%.
different.
100%. One of the things that I've been contemplating, here in California, being in the midst of the Black Lives Matter movement, one of the things that, dawned on me is, the movement is talking all about, not the fact that the Black Lives Matter, everybody knows that, but it's more specific than that. It's saying that, people that are not minority, that have sort of what they call, white privilege here.
Yep.
We have an innate responsibility not only to not be racist, but to actually take action against it, right? So 100%. Being a bystander is a part of the problem. And I think that what you're saying here, top down, and, being as a decision maker, not saying that you promote diversity, but the fact that, but actually taking action and speaking out about that. So I think that's something that's definitely true. But Adi, I also want to talk about a little bit about investing. So, coming in, I'm having the time of my life with Oded Chilmoni at J Ventures, and as I'm understanding the world a little bit better, one thing that is very evident is that different places around the world invest in different ways. And as I get to speak to leaders from different areas in the world, I get to hear about the different mindsets. You have the unique privilege of seeing both the New York side and Tel Aviv side, and I'd love to hear a little bit about your investment thesis and how do you approach opportunities, and what are some of the key questions that you're thinking about?
So I'll take a little bit of a step back. So in general, Flint Capital is a global fund. So we invest out of Israel, but we also invest in the US and Europe. And before that, I worked for two funds in New York both of them were, one was actually kind of global. Fintech Collective has a global point of view and global thesis on investing in fintech companies. And then Symmetrical Ventures, we invested just in companies in the US. So I've had the opportunity to invest in startups that are located in New York, Atlanta, LA, Silicon Valley, but also here in Tel Aviv. So that's just in general. So I think I've been fortunate to really have a perspective on different ecosystems, which I think is really important.
Right.
What I'll say is this: I think that, and this is not just a plug, I think this is something that's really important about investing, is that the fact that we are, as Flint Capital, we have an opportunity to be here, right? I'm the only person here in Israel on the investment team, but we have a partner in Boston, I think that Sergey, so he comes out here often, or before COVID, he came here often. But the ability to be also East Coast and West Coast, to be in different ecosystems and have information from different ecosystems and being able to see what's happening, get information, understand the different VCs, understand the different leaders is really, really important. And I think that's one thing. I would say that investing here is very different than in the States in a few ways. I think it's just what funds look for, right? I'll give you an example, and this is going to be very, and this might not sound weird to you because, you said like people out of 8,200 and the like. So I think that in Israel, there is a lot of that kind of, which is also not good when we think about diversity, right? Diversity is not just about male or female, it's just about being different in general. So I think that in Israel, there's a lot of this like kind of copy paste sometimes where you can find very talented individuals that came out of, Prime Minister's office or 8200 or any one of the other, 9900, any one of these fantastic units, and then they have not much experience, very tech-based, but they're like, this is what I'm doing. I can't tell you what I'm doing, but I'm raising money. And then the expectation is for me to be like, I'm in. And by the way, many funds will be. Now,
Right.
I understand, because when you're very smart technically and you have, and you have so much experience and you're very, you can get very far. You can. But I don't think that in the States you will see so much of that in general. Somebody coming out of MIT or Carnegie Mellon or the like and being like, now we're going to throw $5 million because, or I don't know, even if you came out of like some elite unit in the US Army, I don't think that it would be the same. Because essentially, as you know, and I know, I think in the States, and I think also funds know that too, but it's really, really important to have the business acumen, to understand positioning, to understand how you're going to sell your company. And I think that is a bit of a difference. But on the other hand, the reason why that works in Israel is because it's a small ecosystem and we know each other, and it's easy to get to get the viewpoint on people, understand that they have the capabilities. And then I think that what's good now is that good or bad, we can discuss. Some people see it differently. A lot of funds, they have now this kind of network that they provide to the founders.
Right.
And to help them get to where they get to go, where they need to go. It's different. It's just very, very different. But I think that a lot of positive, I think that there is more camaraderie. In New York, I was super impressed. Like, I think I loved it that we were sharing between each other. VCs, super camaraderie. I don't know if it's like that in the Valley.
That.
In New York, I don't know, the people that I met and the funds that I met, investors, we would share information. If I saw something interesting, what do you think about this? What are your thoughts? What are you looking at? It was a lot of sharing for the sake of working together and getting feedback, especially in the fintech funds, at least. I don't know, but not just. And I think here that's happening too, but it depends again which sector. Some of them are more like, let's keep it in stealth mode and not really share. So I think those are the differences. And I think it's really important for founders when they think about, always think up, like what I said before, thinking a few steps ahead. So when you get your seed investor, I would always think about, or even your pre-seed, but think about who you want to be around the table for your A and how to get there. And I think that's really important.
I think that, one of the things that you mentioned so resonated with me because, I spent 4.5 years in one of those units in the IDF. And then I came here to Stanford to continue my studies and continue enriching, my own my own knowledge, both in engineering, but also in business and scaling products and obviously with J Ventures. And one of the key distinctions, like you mentioned, is I'm seeing, in the IDF, we're sitting down, we're doing, computer science, really, really great advanced technology for many years. And then a lot of my friends go out and they build startups. Here, all of a sudden at Stanford, the first class we have is, introduction to deep learning. The second class is how to scale your product. It's constantly intertwined. What often we find though is that, and I've talked to quite a few professors here, and they mentioned that oftentimes a Technion graduate or a graduate of the unit has more skills than a Stanford or MIT graduate, which is interesting, but obviously it leads to,
No, of course. That's why it does work. I think that what we get in the Army is you can't get that in many other places for sure, but I think you'll agree with me, it's not the same as exactly as working in a company and growing within, doing an internship at somewhere in the States. I think the best thing we'll be able to do, this is some crazy idea I had once, is that if we could get Israelis out of the Army, the opportunity to work for 2 years at array of Fortune 100 companies as a tech job for 2 years, learn what it's like to be in these companies, and they can decide if they want to stay or they want to go and build their own thing. But get that network, get that knowledge, and get the expertise of what it's like to work in corporate America, because that'll be so beneficial for their next cyber company or whatever company they'll do.
That sounds
maybe one day that'll
amazing. Idea. I can't believe we're almost at 20 minutes, and I have to spend the last few minutes understanding you a little bit better. And I'd love to ask a simple yet difficult question. What are you passionate about? Why do you wake up every morning and look at deals and do the work that you do? What are you really passionate about right now?
So, there's what we do in the fund, right? What we invest in, we look at companies that are data driven, any company that has some form of cognitive technology. I'm going to drop the buzzwords, but there is a meaning behind it. So we do like companies that are AI based, NLP, whatever it would be in the world of cognitive tech. But why is that interesting? We really believe, and I myself as well, did the ability to use technology, as you know very well, to make our lives better, to make our lives easier, to make certain processes that we didn't think about exist, or to take processes that didn't work and just make them work better and well, and obviously have a business around it. I personally, obviously, am excited about, those businesses that also have some benefit humanity as well. And it doesn't need to be impact, right? Like if you're a company that obviously, you're helping me with, continue to work out of the office in a very easy, secure way. Okay, that also does good for me. But I think that being able to, but like, for example, what I liked about fintech specifically is that, and I still do, is that there really is a way to invest in a company that is financially focused, that wants to work within the world of finance, but you're helping the underbanked, the unbanked, emerging markets. You're doing things that you didn't think you were necessarily doing, and you're making an impact that you didn't think you actually were. So to me, that's always very, very interesting and important. And I think that, what gets me up in the morning, like I said, is just being able to be a part of that, to be able to meet these individuals. There's that moment when you meet that entrepreneur, whether female, male, and you're like, holy wow, like this is just the right team. I have to invest in this. There's a company right now that I'm looking at that I hope we close the deal. I can't give too much information, obviously, but they're focusing on such a big, important market that touches each and every one of us. And the technology is super strong. But when I will share it with you, hopefully, and we do hopefully invest, you're going to hear about it and be like, wow, like this is so, it seems so simple, but it's so important and it's so different. And when you meet something like that, where it's a big, big market and really, really pain, and it's not just a pain to a few people, it's a pain to all of us, like in our hearts. I think that it's like, you just want to invest. You want to be a part of that journey and be helpful. And yeah, what gets me up also in the morning is my baby. I
love that. I love both answers. And those deals are rare, right? It's it's
so rare.
It's not every day that you meet a team like this. And I often, I'm good friends here with Jor Berman from Innovation Endeavors, and every time I go to their offices and I look at their board of investments, and I ask Jor, like, what are you excited about? And he shares with me a new deal, and it's, and then to the outsider it seems that there's all these amazing deals that come all the time, but it's not true. And I'm seeing it, at J Ventures, it's hard to find those deals. They're very rare, they're very competitive, but at the end, being a partner on a company that makes a good impact on the world, on a product that scales and touches people's lives, that's what I'm on my journey, hopefully, to do one day. So look out.
Hippo is a great example. Hippo is, yes, it's insurance, but you're helping people have a better security in their lives. And a Savant is just the best ever. That's a company I wanted to invest in. Really.
Sitting here, one of the things that I love about COVID, and I hope he watches this because he's helping sponsor this show, is that I get to sit next to him in an empty office of 200 people, and I just get to watch him work. And while I'm coding away the product, I'm just listening in.
By the way, he's one of the people that when I met him when he was raising, I think, his seed in New York. He came to FinTech Collective, and I told him this. Everything he said he would do, he's basically done. So hats down.
Unbelievable. To him. Adi, 3 words that you would use to describe yourself, because you already have a meeting with your female VC colleague.
Yeah. Wow. 3 words to describe myself. Passionate.
Yes.
Loyal.
Okay.
Energetic, I guess.
I love it. Passionate, loyal, energetic. Adi, toda rabba. Thank you very, very much.
This is that to you. Thank you so much. You're doing such a great job.
And I'm looking forward to maintaining this relationship and continuing to learn over the years. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye.